All right, welcome back. House Democrats walking out of a closed-door hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi while she was briefing lawmakers on the Epstein files. Democratic members saying they walked out because Bondi would not commit to complying with a subpoena issued to her to testify in April. But Bondi says she is complying with the law. Here's what Bondi and the top Democrat on the panel, Congressman Robert Garcia, had to say following the walkout.
It is outrageous, it's infuriating, and it continues this White House cover-up of the Epstein files. It's also clear to us that this is being staged as some kind of fake hearing.
We were there to answer questions. It's the evening. We came at their convenience. We gave them as much time as they wanted.
Joining me now is Harmeet Dhillon, Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights at the Department of Justice, and she was present at the hearing. Great to see you again, Harmeet. Thank you for taking the time. What did I just watch?
You just watched Democrats virtue signaling for cameras while for decades they've actually ignored this Epstein issue. And you saw the Attorney General of the United States who came voluntarily to brief members of Congress who apparently didn't want to ask any questions, at least half of them. But the Attorney General sat there with the Deputy Attorney General and answered questions from the lawmakers who stayed behind, which was the Republicans on the Oversight Committee. And they got their questions answered. And we've also invited lawmakers, even before the walkout, to come and meet with the Attorney General if they have questions about particular issues. Indeed, she's met with many of them. And so this is Democrats running stunts for the cameras. And unfortunately, some Republicans voted for a subpoena in this matter, but many of them changed their minds after seeing how the Democrats behaved. And so I think you have to understand that we at the DOJ have a huge job keeping the country safe, going after people who violate our laws, all the fraud, all the waste, and all the DEI stuff that I'm charged with eliminating. And the time soaked up by this Epstein issue it really distracts us from doing those core functions. And so this is a historically transparent DOJ and administration. We've released over 3 million pages of documents. We've made ourselves available. And you have to remember that this Epstein stuff goes back to 20 years ago. And so where was all the outrage and where were all the questions during the Biden administration, during the Obama administration, during the Bush administration, where it all started? And where is the credit for President Trump to be the only president to actually prosecute this guy in his first term? And so I think it's time for us people can look at the documents, reach their conclusions, and let us do our jobs here at the Department of Justice.
Do you believe that for Democrats, this may not be necessarily about the victims as they say that it is, and it's about Donald Trump?
Well, that's obvious. And it's about creating a record to go after members of the administration and harass them if a political situation goes against Republicans in the midterms. That's clearly what it's about. If they were concerned about victims, they could have had these hearings for the past 20 years. Some of these people have been in Congress for a long time, and the first time they seem concerned about this is right before the midterms. And it is so fake, particularly when you look through those documents and you look through the associates mentioned there. You know, there are people on both sides. I don't see a lot of concern for victims, quite frankly. And when we talk about victims, the Attorney General has an incredible record of protecting people who are the victims of human trafficking and sex trafficking. And, you know, her record speaks for itself there. And so we're compassionate about that. Attorney General has an open door and has met with many members of Congress and the Senate. I've sat there during some of these briefings. I've gone to the Hill to brief people. And so our transparency is a bar none. And
but what about,
really think this is just a waste of time.
If I can jump in, the concern seems to be, or a lot of the concerns that are raised are hidden behind the request to the redactions that are within the more than 3 million documents, videos, pictures, and obviously emails that are contained within the release. But there's a lot of concern about the redactions. What is next? Is there another tranche? Is the DOJ still working on this, or is the DOJ done with the release? What update can you give on that?
Well, the Attorney General gave an update and answered all the questions of the members of the Oversight Committee, and has also put out public documents, as has Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General. So to be clear, we've released all the documents that we're able to release. There's about 200,000 pages worth of documents that have been withheld for legal privilege reasons. Redactions are to protect victims. There are always, you can ask any trial lawyer in a document production of 3 million pages, there are going to be some errors or some over redactions. Those have all been corrected to our knowledge. And so there's a tip line where victims or their lawyers can reach out and say, oh, this needs to be redacted, or someone can correct an over redaction. Members of Congress are able to review these documents unredacted. Most of the members of that Oversight Committee haven't come over here to the DOJ to review these documents. They're just, screaming about them on television instead of actually coming. If they were concerned about who is behind some of these redactions, they can come over here and see those. And public also needs to understand that these documents were only released after first 2 different federal courts denied the DOJ motions to unseal them. And then after the transparency law was passed and signed by President Trump, we went back to those 2 judges, and pursuant to that new law passed by Congress, those judges unsealed, allowing us for the first time to release these documents. But we still want to protect these victims, and we have done that. So there's been a less than 1% error rate in these documents, which is actually a pretty good record. And I've been a lawyer for over 33 years now. It's a pretty good record in a giant document production.
Sure. Just go. I'll let you go. Just back to my initial question in terms of the walkout while the AG was answering questions. Was that political?
Obviously, it was political. First of all, it was only Democrats who walked out. None of them asked a single question, substantive question. Committee questioning goes by a minority party, majority party, back and forth. 3 of them asked the question, are you going to show up for your subpoena? We just got that subpoena. There may be valid reasons to not appear for a subpoena. That subpoena may end up being deemed satisfied or withdrawn because members of the committee have changed their minds on that subpoena. I've heard from some of them personally. And so, that's the situation. But the Attorney General is there in front of them. They could have asked questions. What they wanted, as I think it was Rashida Tlaib shouted as she walked out, she wanted cameras there. She wanted C-SPAN there. She thinks it's not a real question and answer if there isn't a camera for the member of Congress to posture. Is that how we should expect our lawmakers to behave to one of the president's cabinet members? I don't think so. It was really indecorous and really, frankly, embarrassing for the people who walked out, I think.
All right, part of the DOJ there. Harmeet Dhillon joining us. Great to see you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime, anytime.